YouTube's the most basic beginning of a video essay. Drinking. Let's get on with it. As some of you may know, Russia, being predominantly Orthodox Christian country, doesn't celebrate Christmas on December 25th. Instead, Christmas is celebrated on January 7th and is a religious holiday. It's not even the most important one, kind of losing this status to Easter. However, the most important celebration of the year still happens in December on New Year's Eve. New Year is a universal holiday, free of religious connotations, and is widely beloved by everyone except maybe the most jaded individuals. The history of New Year's celebrations in Russia is a convoluted one. Started by Peter the Great trying to insert the Russian Empire into European society and quite intensely reshaping and westernizing the culture in the 16th century before the adoption of Gregorian calendar, which later birthed the abomination called Old New Year, January 14th, which would be January 1st in the Julian calendar. Usually a reason for people to get shit-faced all over and celebrate the Old New Year. In Soviet times, Christmas got cancelled all over due to more atheist tendencies in USSR and anti-bourgeoisie ideas. At the time, people that celebrated either Christmas or New Year pretty much the same way, and it was mostly former nobility who did it, with people secretly bringing trees, sawed in half in sacks, so no one would know what they were carrying. Party officials were checking homes for Christmas trees. Celebrating the holiday was considered anti-revolutionary for a period of time. But then in the Stalin times, New Year became an official celebration mainly targeted at children. That was intended to happen publicly, as a unifying event. No one really gave a fuck about the kids, though, not really. It was ultimately another tool of propaganda to build up an image of Stalin, with kids thanking Stalin for their happy childhood and the gifts, and singing patriotic songs. These events were held even for starving children, with horrifying accounts of elderly-looking kids, entirely apathetic to the show adults performed for them, but they performed them anyway. Not like they had any real choice. Everyone knows what happened to those who were against in Stalin's times. So people set up Christmas trees and sang the dictator's praise. And it worked. The holiday grew on the country. It really, really did. As the times progressed, New Year slowly started to become less party-regulated and more family-centered, with people celebrating at home, which is more or less the way holiday works these days too. I would argue that New Year is the most important holiday in Russia. Even Christmas, as perceived by Americans, pales in comparison. The States have a problem with commercialized holidays, but they still have a non-political, non-religious holidays to celebrate. In Russia, New Year is literally the only one, apart from your birthday. Let's do a circle around the year. Defender of the Motherland Day, political. Women's Day, somewhat political, let's not get into that today. Maslenitsa, religious. Easter, religious. Victory Day, political. Russia Day, political. People's Unification Day, political, whatever that is. New Year is all about looking forward to the future, hoping for a better life, getting together with people you love, and hundreds more interpretations. And it comes with 7 days of public holidays. So unless you're self-employed or work a service or essential job, you have a good week of rest to anticipate, especially in the middle of the winter, when the nights are the longest and depression is always at an arm's reach. The fact that so many traditions are jammed into the holiday makes it very exciting. To a degree, celebrating New Year is pretty big in the national identity, and in Russia, national identity often comes before your personal identity. I know many people who care more about New Year than their own birthday, me included. No wonder all manners of questionable characters try to use it for their own gain. I mean, ultimately, it was always a political thing, wasn't it, since the very first days? If you want to have a quick picture of what it's like these days, just merge Christmas and New Year in your head. The attributes of New Year's Eve celebrations are New Year's tree, Christmas tree with less Jesus innuendos, Ded Moroz, Grandpa Frost, bootleg Santa invented in Soviet Union who has a granddaughter named Snegurочка, derived from Sneg, snow. Ded Moroz brings gifts to the kids, although instead of cookies, he accepts payments in poetry readings. Adults exchange gifts as well, family gatherings and dinner, fireworks, countdown at midnight, New Year's movies are on TV every year and they are the same ones. New Year's songs. Some of the traditions are from the old days, some were acquired along the way from circumstances, like traditional celebratory dishes stemming from what was available to citizens at the time, but was considered rare and prestigious. And from adoption of traditions from other countries. I'm not going to talk about the abomination of like Russian interpretation of Chinese like horoscope, but like it's crazy. At this point, Western Christmas is regarded in Russia as basically New Year, so you can hear Christmas music in the malls and see more traditional Western attributes like gingerbread houses. But as my experience shows, people don't actually know that much about Western Christmas. It's also customary for children to dress up in different costumes for celebratory events hosted by schools, kindergartens, and like by the government in general, which kind of gives me the smell of Halloween as well. It's really, New Year is everything. I was a sunflower in elementary school. I remember every year the lights on the New Year's tree were originally off and all of the kids had to scream "Ёлочка, гори!" as an invisible janitor at the power outlet would make the tree magically light up. And of course there is a wide belief that how you welcome New Year is the way you spend it. If you party with your loved ones, wear your best clothes and eat the best food, you'll prosper. There is a classic picture of New Year's get-together at home, the most traditional of celebrations. A table set in the living room with salads, cured meats, mandarin oranges, red caviar, roasted chicken, champagne, vodka, fruit juice, different generations all dressed up and smiling, exchanging gifts and wishes, a tree decorated in the corner of a room, and a TV with a variety show on it, interrupted by Putin. Wait, what? Well, for the past a lot of years, the TV programming on New Year's Eve is pretty much the same. Special old Soviet movies during the day and variety shows shot and produced for this year specifically with New Year in mind, with budgets of millions and millions of US dollars. 5 minutes before the clock strikes midnight, the nauseatingly familiar face appears. I have only seen 2 in my lifetime, Putin and Medvedev, but my parents have seen more. Not a lot more though. The head of the country gives the speech. Something bland and unmemorable, and then the next year comes. The variety shows keep being broadcasted until early morning of January 1st every year. New Year is a family holiday and all, but spending the night at the dinner table with your family without anything to distract you is unendurable torture. So the TV basically has a seat at the table, sometimes at the very head. Some folks, old people especially, have no one but them and the blue screen at their nicely set table, shielding them from their complete loneliness. For me, the variety show itself is unendurable torture I try to avoid since, 2016? First through getting knockout drunk even before it starts. And next, just going quietly to bed, like the country's biggest holiday isn't even there. So of course I have to involve myself in the mental self-harm of writing about it. I have to. You'll see. There's a piece of cork in this. All right, little blue light. Little Blue Light came to be in the 60s. It started off as not connected with New Year at all, as a weekly live show with all kinds of singers, comedians, and all over important people, and of course, party officials. In 1962, the first pre-recorded New Year's Little Blue Light came out and immediately became a staple of New Year's celebrations. It was, of course, heavily censored. Some articles I read stated that under Sergei Lapin guidance, the rules were incredibly strict on everything, as he was incredibly concerned with what kind of message the show was sending to Soviet citizens. So the acts were heavily edited, and no one was ever certain that they will make it into the final cut. Everything was regulated, including the ornaments and the clothes of the guests and performers. Women were not allowed to wear pants. I'm going to start listing our characters. Because yes, some of the original performers of the show in the 60s continued being frequent guests until the present times. Like Iosif Kobzon, an absolute eldritch horror of Russian stage. But see you in a specific section of this video on that. The acts featured a lot of Raikin, Brezhnev's favorite comedian, and a lot of not-so-foreign acts from other members of the USSR and USSR-friendly countries. By the 80s, the show got much more liberal comparing to the 60s. The 90s and the collapse of the Soviet Union were getting closer. And it was definitely showing, and in production quality, in act selection. By the way, note the comedic duo of two men in headscarves. Their shtick was pretending to be old ladies and working the comedic angle in their dialogue. It will be relevant later. A lot of late 80s acts, honestly, were barely comprehensible to me. I mean, I'm a Zoomer and I have zero cultural background in anything pre-2000s. But I asked my mom, and she confirmed that she doesn't know what the fuck was going on either. What stuck with me were a lot of folk acts and weird animated satire bits from this particular show in 1987. Bland-ass congratulations from party officials, of course. But hey, at least Valery Leontiev was living out his JoJo Bizarre Adventure villain dreams. Man, I loved the guy when I was a kid. It all follows along well with what was happening in the country. Morals, laws, and censorship loosened. Plenty of cool new stuff was coming in from the West, but at the same time, the country wasn't exactly in a great shape. Welcome to the conspiracy board. Well, there is no conspiracy. This is more about the format than the content. This is where we are going to talk about artists featured in these variety shows and learn more about them as we go. Let's start with already mentioned Iosif Kobzon. I'm gonna call him Joseph for Western audience purposes. Joseph Kobzon, born in a Jewish family in 1937 in Ukrainian SSR. He appeared in the first Little Blue Light in 1962 with a song about Cuba, and enjoyed plenty of success over the years in USSR and was decorated with plenty of awards. Let me joke him a little. Wait, he has too many of them. They just won't fit on the board. Let's do it like this. I will add only the big government ones, color coding where he got them. There. Ooh, that is so many. 6, 9, 15, 18, and that's just the big ones. He also started dabbling in politics near the beginning of the Soviet Union's collapse. Sofia Rotaru, born in 1947 in the Ukrainian SSR, gained popularity in 1962, although was invited to perform at the Little Blue Light a bit later than that, and over the years became one of the most innovative and successful singers in the country. Alla Pugacheva, born in 1949 in Moscow, she began her career as a teenager and it only went up, and her first Little Blue Light was in 1976, where she was already one of the hosts, although she was a bit of a controversial figure, unlike Rotaru. Lev Lещенко, born in 1942 in Moscow, will not be a very exciting person on this list. You see, he was always, since the late 60s, a singer of predominantly patriotic and ideologically proper songs. You can see he was quite beloved by the party. Evgeny Petrosyan, born in 1945 in Azerbaijan, not a singer, but a comedian. Such a well-known comedian, in fact, that the name Petrosyan often used as a colloquial noun in Russian, meaning an extremely unfunny person making bad jokes. But back in Soviet Union, I guess people thought he was funny. And then, well, 1989 turned into 1990. It was the last Soviet little blue light before the collapse and the unrest that followed. In that year, pretty much all of the classic little blue light performers were there. The ones I mentioned in the previous section and the other ones that were not as ancient, but more on that. The show was a tasteful compilation instead of a everyone is having a party type of thing. That format slowly went away in the 80s. Well, tasteful. Apart from regular singers and comedians, it had dance pieces by ballet studio Troika, which I cannot describe in any way but burlesque. After binging earlier Soviet shows, it was incredibly strange for me to see that kind of performance, knowing that it was shown in the most important TV segment of the year for everyone to see. It is a stark contrast from the 60s and the 70s programs where performers had to fight to get there and everything was heavily edited. This one specific dance gave me like whiplash. Even for me as a modern viewer, it's absolutely unthinkable that this can be on TV. Not in present times, definitely no. But the 90s were starting, and after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the TV screens were flooded with insane amounts of sexually explicit content. It was an end of an era, and that New Year's Eve, many already felt what was coming. In the 90s, Little Blue Light went away with the USSR. There were other New Year's programs, but the 90s were a crazy and difficult time in newborn Russia, with crime and poverty on the rise, and all of those nationwide traditions of every year we do this, every year we do that, kind of went out the window. In 1998, however, when I was only a few days old, Little Blue Light made a comeback, using the 60s format of one big party that was obviously pre-recorded and produced, introducing people who got famous in the 8-year period and some new traditions, along with bringing back a few of the past ones. The habit of rewriting the lyrics for the song 5 minutes and singing it every year originated somewhere here as well, I think. God, I hate 5 minutes. Surprisingly, I didn't hate watching that show at all. It wasn't like amazing, but some comedic bits were meh, but some were solid. And despite the presence of certain political figures, it wasn't like outright political. The comedic folk song about how we sure pay a lot of taxes was, I don't know, funny, not too bad. Also, cross-dressing, bordering on drag, like bordering. It's not brand new. Cross-dressing as a comedic tool was not only there in Soviet Union, but even before it in Russian Empire. Although in the USSR it was much more like mild and symbolic. Remember our babushka duo? They just had the headscarves. But after the 90s, it got a lot more high effort. Don't get too excited for this new Russia though. Putin is about to be elected. I need to lay off this stuff. I am buzzed. But fuck it, it's the holidays. Kobzon didn't even flinch with USSR's collapse. His career was unshakable, and he was still trying to get into politics again and again, and he finally got elected somewhere in 1997. Sofia Rotaru, although performing in Russia as well, became a citizen of Ukraine. Alla Pugacheva was also crazy successful by the time the Union collapsed, and the moment Little Blue Light was resurrected, she was on it. Lev Leshchenko is fine. Evgeny Petrosyan is slowly on his way from being the source of the joke to being the butt of the joke. But his monopoly on humor is beginning to establish. And of course we have some new faces. Valery Mеладзе, born in 1965 in Georgia, my personal favorite. I used to really like him as a kid for some reason. The most notable addition of the 90s is, of course, Philip Kirkorov. born in 1967 in Bulgaria. If you forgot about all of the others, remember him, he's super important. And he's one of the most recognizable singers in Russia to this day. In the 80s, he was touring with the legend herself, Alla Pugacheva, but by the late 90s, he's got really, really big on his own. This bitch has a lot of words. Am I getting better at drawing them? This is a pop folk singer, Nadezhda Babkina, born in 1950. She's old school, but she wasn't as popular and in the public eye until the 90s. Also introducing Boris Moiseev, born in 1954 in Belarus, in women's jail to a political prisoner. He, much like Kirkorov, started with Alla Pugacheva, originally a singer, but he went solo and he came out as gay. Bold move still, and he remained practically the only openly gay performer in Russia. Oleg Gazmanov, born in 1951 in Kaliningrad region, was so fun back in the days. He was kind of like a fun version of Lev Leshchenko, because Leshchenko was like very patriotic, very military, but boring, and Oleg Gazmanov was also very military. He was a skilled gymnast. He has been doing like crazy stunts on stage for the past God knows how long. And with repertoire of a very high energy military adjacent songs, he was just fun to watch on stage. I mean, he still kind of is, but you know, he's been a bit tainted. Lolita Milявskaya, but she is mostly known just as Lolita. Born in 1963 in Ukraine, always leaned edgy. No words. Although hadn't yet become as controversial as she would in the future. Yet. There won't be a sudden dramatic change like the moment Putin comes to power, of course. Let's take a look at 2006 show and see how it compares with the one in the 1998. It has plenty of similarities in people and style. Certain things just got cemented in, like cross-dressing. Introducing the new babushka duo. Higher effort this time. I thought they were actual old women until I was like 11. I think this is around the time that the show starts developing its cancerous tumors of entertainment. By repeating the jokes comedians are known for, repeating the songs the singers are known for, reaching into Soviet movies for material instead of coming up with new things. Alcoholism also starts to become commonly used punchline, which I of course hate. Having excessive drinking as a part of national identity and normalizing it in the time when people drink the most really rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I don't want to talk really. Also, celebrities themselves become bigger talking points slowly. Right now, at like early 2000s, mid 2000s, they are targets to poke fun at. Among the people who are in their 30s to 40s right now, 2007 is widely regarded as the best year ever though, with good ruble to dollar exchange rate, cheap produce, and well, we emos. Well, yeah, I don't know if the 2007 was really that good, but it definitely went downhill from there, especially after Putin comes back after a surprisingly liberal few years of presidency of his second in command, Medvedev. Kobzon finally got his political career going, joining Russia United, the unchanging ruling party to this day, and finally getting some pretty high positions, including the head of the Culture Committee in Duma. Sofia Rotaru touched Ukrainian politics just a little bit, but mostly enjoyed her music career and was named the most beloved female singer in Russia several times. Alla Pugacheva fucking quit her performing in 2010 and focused on other things. In 2011, I kid you not, she was the third on the list of Russian elite right after Putin and Medvedev. But she wasn't a big public endorser of these two. She was a big source of new performers in Russia since Soviet times, and although mostly absent from the screens on New Year's Eve, still somewhat present. She divorced Kirkorov and married a comedian, Maxim Galkin. Let's add him to the board. Maxim Galkin, the husband of Alla Pugacheva, and pretty important figure. He's going to be much more visible because he often hosts these New Year's variety shows. Ukrainian sensation Verka Serdyuchka, played by Andrei Danilko, is now present. This is a drag character. In 2007, this character almost wins Eurovision so hard she becomes a frequent honored guest there for years to come, while being simultaneously cancelled in both Russia and Ukraine. In Russia, because the song lyrics on Eurovision sounded vaguely like Russia Goodbye, and in Ukraine, because it is a disgrace. But despite all that, she didn't disappear from the public eye even after giving up tours, and in my memory was very beloved by regular Russian population. Like, I had like several cassettes of her at home, and like I remember my grandmother, who is like the most homophobic person I have ever met, kind of like vibing to Verka Serdyuchka. Let's jump back to Evgeny Petrosyan. His comedic omnipresence is becoming funnier than any of the attempts at humor. He has been incredibly successful, don't get me wrong, to the point where he and his crew were literally everywhere, and his several comedy shows were the only ones I knew when I was a kid. It was, although inappropriate for a kid, and frankly not that funny. Philipp Kirkorov is slowly becoming infamous due to several angry outbursts and scandals. He's like a bit of a diva. And last but not least, introducing Nikolai Baskov, born in Moscow in 1976, an opera singer gone pop. He's going to gain more and more prominence as we go on. Known for being a natural blonde, he has a song about it. He is incredibly important, and he's kind of on the same level with Philipp Kirkorov. You'll see. Enough of this stuff for now. We are getting into serious stuff. Putin became president again in 2012, and he still remains in the same chair since then, and is going to be re-elected again next year. Just before the 2012 election, the term length was changed from 4 years to 6, so he could and will rule for 12 more years. As some people were cheering for stability and strong leader, some knew where this is going. For me, the first little bell rang in 2013, when I was a teenager. Very much queer teenager, may I add. Kind of in the middle of a gender crisis, still not entirely developed in terms of sexuality, but surrounded with people who were very much gay. Of course, I am talking about gay propaganda among minors law. It wasn't entirely new, of course. Russia has an extensive history of homophobia, like pretty much any country. USSR had a law against sodomy until its very collapse, but it was overturned in the 90s in the new Russia. But efforts have been consistent to bring some of the anti-gay laws back since then. The homophobic dream started to come true under Medvedev's rule, first regionally, but then on a countrywide level in 2013. The loose summary of the original law goes like this. Originally, there was a bill on protecting children from information harmful to their health and development, restricting content which may elicit fear, horror, or panic in children, pornography, along with materials that glorify violence, unlawful activity, substance abuse, or self-harm. Kind of a good idea, I mean. This law was amended to include propaganda of non-traditional sexual relationships, meant to prevent children from thinking these kinds of relationships were in any way normal or desirable, and to protect family values. Breaking this law and exposing minors to such content is punished by fines. I actually did a little segment on this very thing in a Johnny Harris video on Russia, I think last year. But shit hit the fan with this law. Developed countries, celebrities, and human rights organizations were begging Russia to reconsider. Conservatives happily blasted the gays are pedophiles rhetoric around. People went to protest and got punished for it. Violent crime against LGBTQ people went up, and people and organizations working with queer youth were getting persecuted. Happy New Year? This New Year's broadcast split into two shows. New Year's Parade of Stars, starting at 10 p.m. and lasting just under 2 hours. That consists of more creative acts. I don't mean that as a compliment. Much heavier on comedy and current affairs. And the Little Blue Light itself, consisting of relatively tamer acts with more basic songs from different performers, lasting around 5 hours until the morning. All of these got semi-permanent hosts. Some guys do change, but Kirkorov or Baskov are almost always present every year, starting from now. The Parade of 2012 stood out to me as rather parody-heavy and kind of shitty humor, sexual and sexist for the most part. Little Blue Light next year, on January 1st, 2014. Language is hard. Picked up the garbage torch. Literally though. Since the 2014, there were going to be Olympic Games in Sochi, and it was a major talking point throughout the show. The fact that there was an array of scandals related to Sochi Olympics and recently passed homophobic laws was never brought up, of course. It continued being kinda sexist, but now the celebrities also got egos, circle jerking each other about what an amazing stars they are and how good of a job they are doing for the people. Also, you can find a suspiciously familiar face around there that is not sticking here for much longer. I wonder how his life turns out. Okay. Yeah, right. Where are our conspiracy board guys? Okay, so I marked the ones who are active members of the political party Russia United. Надежда Бабкина, Lev Leshchenko, and Kobzon. Some of these people are also very strong supporters of the party, but I haven't found any information on if they are or were in the party itself. So, where are we on the gays? Kobzon supported the gay propaganda law, although admitted that Russian music stage is full of LGBT people. And some articles say that he claimed 70% of people in Russian music industry are gay, but I can't find a proper source for that. And that he personally knows plenty of gays and has no issue with them. Ow. And just wants to protect the kids. Let's draw him a little straight flag. Sofia Rotaru minded her own fucking business, it seems, and just kept at her career. Alla Pugacheva had been a gay icon long before the whole propaganda debacle, since the 90s, and rumor has it even before that, back in the days of USSR when being gay was straight up illegal. Some queer people in Russia don't support her status as a quote-unquote icon, and some do. She's controversial, always has been. She said some contradictory things, being somehow anti-homophobia and anti-pride at the same time. Let's put her in the supportive category and draw her a blank rectangle. The pride flag is currently may or may not be illegal for me to show. Lev Leshchenko is with Kobzon in this. Apparently, although again it's hard to locate a primary source, he has spoken out about LGBT and talking about how some queer people of Russian stage are talented, but still he disapproves, the children, you know the drill. Evgeny Petrosyan at this point is firmly a pinnacle of cringe boomer humor, irredeemably. Didn't seem to say anything about the gays though. Philipp Kirkorov publicly supported LGBT community, asking why try to find something that's natural. Let's give him a blank rectangle as well. Nadezhda Babkina, however, was highly homophobic, calling homosexuality a perversion and a disease. Straight flag, definitely. Alright, Boris Moiseev, obviously, but he was actually ambiguous. He wasn't supportive of the law, but said some things, for example, expressed a negative opinion about pride parades, for which he was criticized by queer people. Still, I'm not gonna give Boris Moiseev a straight flag, so let's give him a rectangle. There it is. Verka Serduchka was not removed from TV programs and shows, as was stated by TV executives. It's like, it's not gay if it's funny. Lolita was a very outspoken supporter of gay rights and expressed her negative opinion of the law publicly. Nikolai Baskov, it seems, hasn't expressed any opinions on the matter, but plenty of opinions on him were expressed. I feel like he's the most accused of homosexuality performer of Russian stage. I have an idea. Let's put exclamation marks for people accused of the gay. Let me find... Oh, the pink one. Yeah, let's do that one. Obviously. Who else? I think that's it. Alright, let's get some fresh, young-ish blood in the mix. Vera Brezhneva, a Ukrainian singer born in 1982, a beauty icon at the time. Sergei Lazarev, born in Moscow in 1983, pretty popular among women. He's been around for a good while before 2012, and he was also quite supportive of gay rights. I mean, he was also accused of being gay. How do I put it softly without insulting anyone and also going to jail? Ukraine had some unrest, and Russia swooped in annexing Crimea and destroying half of its international relationship along with its economy. As if that wasn't enough, the government prepares an answer to the Western sanctions. Food import restrictions that made a couple of European countries uncomfortable for like 15 minutes. And deprived the whole Russian population, except the elite of course, of delicious Western foods. These sanctions are still in effect, so if you would colorfully describe to me what real Parmesan cheese tastes like in the comments, I would appreciate. Well, at least we still have our variety shows, right? Oh yeah, we do. Ew. Of course, the parade is very thick with jokes about sanctions and how ridiculous they are. The overall vibe is, the rest of the world doesn't like us, we will manage. It's not subtle. Political parodies are here to stay, but cross-dressing isn't going anywhere either. The previous shows had a lot of wishes and little conversations about love and romance. Now it puts a bigger emphasis on family, and New Year being a family holiday. There was one performance including a child, and involvement of children in the mainstream entertainment will only continue to grow. As Bluebird talent show for youth debuts in 2015, at least the children don't see any propaganda, right? I really like the bit where Kirkorov sings a song that boils down to basically dump his ass bestie, he's not worth it, in the middle of all this. Did he not get the memo or something? Did he miss an email? Also, there is a parody act commemorating how Russia was shaken after Conchita Wurst on Eurovision. People came undone despite the fact that, well, Verka Serduchka, right there. Oh man, those were the times. Also, weird and somewhat racist stuff starts popping up. If the 2014 motto was, if the world doesn't like us, we're fine, then the 2016 motto moves to, you know what, we don't like them back. They brought politicians and Solovyov, one of the most important propagandists, where is the stress in this in English? Of Putin's Russia on stage for this, which is telling. The comedy gets pretty heavy-handed at this point, and I really mean it. The whole bit is just about how ridiculous it is for the West to have women as politicians, because LOL females. And all three of them are ugly, by the way. Very nuanced comedic take. All three of the parodists are men, by the way. Drag anyone? The gas and oil song isn't much better. I remember watching this, like when it was first aired on New Year's Eve, and feeling my blood boil over having to listen to this when I'm trying not to be miserable on New Year's Eve. I think 2016 was also the time when these shows started to lose fans among general population for a variety of reasons. Some people hate seeing the same fossils of Soviet era and early post-Soviet Russia. Some people hate the repetition and shitty humor, but watching it unironically was deemed distasteful for a large chunk of Russians, who instead started reminiscing about old Soviet shows, some even claiming the ones from the 60s were the best. Ukraine, previously unmentioned in 2014 and up, surfaces briefly with a couple of jokes and a folk song, with an overall message, Russia and Ukraine is basically the same thing. I would say these few years are definitely the most unhinged of all I watched, kind of in the middle of Russia going crazy politically, but still being liberal enough for these things to kind of fly. Kobzon loudly supported the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and gradually had all of his Ukrainian rewards stripped from him. Sofia Rotaru, being a Ukrainian citizen, was obviously not a fan of the whole thing, but didn't make a big fuss out of it. Lev Leshchenko also supported the annexation, no rewards to cross off. Evgeny Petrosyan also stated that the Crimea was Russian. Philippe Kirkorov already had close ties with the government at that time. He got some help with managing another scandal he was involved in from Peskov, Putin's press secretary. Nadezhda Babkina was already a very devoted supporter of Putin, so of course she was pro-annexation, as well as Oleg Gazmanov. Lolita supported the annexation and called Putin a genius. Nikolai Baskov supported the annexation. Lost in a word. Sergei Lazarev didn't support the annexation. Vera Brezhneva, of course, she didn't. 2021 show was actually not that terrible. COVID-19 pandemic was, of course, a terrible thing, but it was a goldmine of comedic prompts and bits, and the situation was so relevant for everyone. The shows put the politics on the back burner and did a bunch of performances on vaccination, social distancing, and so on. Nothing hinted at what is going to happen in 2022. How could it? Kobzon kicked the bucket in 2018. Last thing he did as a politician was supporting the very unpopular retirement age reform. Sofia Rotaru still extensively toured Russia and regularly appeared in Blue Light, including the one in 2022, a couple of months before the thing. Alla Pugacheva just celebrated her 7th birthday and other things. Lev Leshchenko endorsed Putin on his 2018 presidential campaign and supported the retirement age reform, and had several heart attacks related to COVID, but he made it out alive. Evgeny Petrosyan endorsed Putin strongly in 2018. Philippe Kirkorov, man, where do I even start? Man's been in trouble for, let me get that, man's been in trouble for LGBTQ propaganda several times. Starting from an appearance suspiciously resembling a gay wedding at a music show to a music video with Baskov. That was not very straight indeed. He was also gaining some popularity among young people, but lost some ground after taking part in a music video in support of Lukashenko in 2020 during protests in Belarus. That's, I guess, where the awards from Belarus come from. Baskov also was in the pro-Lukashenko vid and was actively endorsing Putin around that time. Lolita was anti-Lukashenko. Sergei Lazarev did 180, claimed his words about his lack of support of annexation were a misrepresentation from the journalists, and performed at a concert dedicated to the anniversary of Crimea becoming a part, technically, of Russia. Valery Mеладзе supported and not Putin during the 2018 elections. I don't know anything about this candidate, but it was not Putin. Boris Moiseev, there he is. Boris Moiseev having been touring for a while now due to health issues. Well, 2022 escalated quickly. I don't fucking have to tell you that, you know. My world fell apart around me in a matter of a couple of months. But, you know, I'm still kicking. I'm not here to talk about the thing, though. I'm here to talk about some legal stuff again. There are two notable laws passed in 2022 that I want to talk about that I think are relevant to the topic. The first set of legislations, known colloquially as word censorship laws, was passed in 2 days. They are harsh, to say the least. I am on the English segment of YouTube speaking English to like 5 Westerners at best, and I still try to avoid saying something that might bite me in the ass later. I don't think I'm doing a very good job at that, but I'm at least trying. But the laws are intentionally vague, so saying anything against the military agenda of the government or questioning the official point of view on the events can be considered an offense if you need to be made an example of. The first offense is punished with a fine, a repeated one can land you in jail. Comparing it to the gay propaganda law with a relatively small amount of actual cases, the amount of people trialed for breaking this one skyrocketed immediately, with several high-profile cases of people getting maximum jail time, political opposition and regular people alike. Reporting became fashionable again, and I don't mean like journalistic reporting, I mean like reporting your neighbor to the police. Another law that recently celebrated 1-year anniversary is the expanded gay propaganda law. Basically, the among minors part was removed. Now the law protects the entire population of Russia from the evil gay agenda. Other additions to the law expand the list of things not allowed. For example, something that can make a gender transition, although the law refers to it as sex change, appealing or normal. This came hand in hand with a number of additional restrictions, social and medical, for trans people. The law expansion went fucking off, I have to tell you. Blurred scene where Ken's kiss Ken on the cheek in the pirated copy of Barbie movie illegally shown in theaters, grayed out rainbow in a K-pop music video, pulling a comic book about a pigeon from the shelves for pansexuality jokes, finding a TV channel for music video with 2 women's hands touching. It would be kind of funny, honestly, if it wasn't so scary. Ooh. That's a fucking tongue twister. So, how are our New Year's shows doing? Shouldn't have been drinking. Well, first of all, it's hard to watch. I had to pause the thing and walk away from my computer a few times just to process and go through the propaganda. I am somewhat thankful for the fact that I couldn't find the New Year's Star Parade from this year. I feel like it's probably much worse than the Little Blue Light. The Blue Light heavily features actual real-life military seated at the tables among the seasoned Russian celebrities of different sort. Their faces are something to observe. Some are introduced and have a chance to say a toast, for the victory, of course. And some are just background characters. One of the most prominent ones at the military table is this guy, the current head of Sparta Battalion, Artyom Zhoga, the father of previous head Vladimir. Sparta has been around for a long while, since 2014, and was investigated for war crimes, and by some strange coincidence is using a Russian Empire flag for its insignia, a flag that is especially appreciated by Russian nationalists. Funny seeing him here. It means more than some people think. Mere months later, he became a part of Putin's immediate circle, taking a big role in his 2024 election campaign. The well-known propagandists like Kiselyov and Solovyov are joined by war correspondents that gained quite a lot of popularity for obvious reasons. A lot, and I really mean a lot, of the usual blue light faces are missing. Some of them are present. Alright, I'm gonna give it to Conspiracy Report. Sofia Rotaru is vocally and decisively done with Russia, siding firmly with her homeland. Slander articles about her begin to pop up, and she's obviously entirely missing from Russian stage. Alla Pugacheva is also done. Although she, as usual, doesn't speak out politically, she sides with her husband and severs ties with Russia. Slander has been popping up about her since the 70s, probably, so I think she's used to it at this point. Lev Leshchenko is strongly supportive of the special military operation and is very prominent face in the blue light in overall. Decades of patriotic material are coming in handy. Evgeny Petrosyan is supportive of the thing and is telling political jokes on the blue light. I will not translate them, as they will be even less funny in English, and you don't need to hear that crap to know it's crap. He kinda gives me the creeps too. Philipp Kirkorov sided with Russia. Nadezhda Babkina was always an unhinged patriot of Russia. Oleg Gazmanov had his career skyrocket. Look at him doing his stunts at the 2023 Blue Light, looking all nice. He's been busy at the front lines of the pro-military propaganda. Verka Serdyuchka is of course long gone from the Russian stage. Lolita sided with Russia and toned down her more left-leaning beliefs quite a lot. Vera Brezhneva dropped Russia entirely. Sergei Lazarev is a pussy. Sergei Lazarev first spoke out against the war, but then did a complete 180 again and turned to spreading propaganda with quite a lot of enthusiasm. Let's put a question mark a little bit, that was weird. Miladze spoke out against the military operation and got his ass blacklisted. Boris Moiseyev had his third stroke in September of 2022 and died. I feel like it matters. But there is a new face, of course. Shaman. Let's put him in the middle with big letters. I'm gonna have to squat down. Shaman. Or shaman. No, that's not the right hand. What is the right hand? In that direction. Shaman. Language is hard. 30-something guy named Yaroslav started his career on a talent show in 2014 and was spending it playing in a cover band before adopting the cringe hairstyle and the stage name Shaman, getting some traction but nothing compared to what he got in 2022. His patriotic songs have since become synonymous with pro-Russian government movements. When he got satirized by a Russian comedian, the poor comedian got grilled so hard it became apparent that Shaman has secured himself a place among the gods of Russian stage, not to be trifled with. And a different version of his hit song Vstanem features the most devoted pro-government singers, some of whom I mentioned in the conspiracy board. I'd love to do a deeper dive into the others, but it's pretty bad for my health or well-being. The song by Shaman is fucking good though, don't get me wrong. That's the hard part about it. You just can't fight the music and the emotion in it. Shaman is often criticized and satirized for Third Reich vibes that are not subtle, but he knows how to do his thing. He got a standing fucking ovation for his song in 2023 Blue Light. That also means more than you think. My favorite video essayist drinks during his filming, and now I know why. This is good, this helps. These people are but a fraction of the big names performing in these variety shows alone. And I haven't even mentioned other sides of the show business in Russia, also tied and fused with the government. Some of these people are chosen at random, some are so prominent the video wouldn't work without them. I can see a few patterns around the age and place of birth, of relationships and where these people ended up. None of this is random. I feel inadequate at this. This topic is research worthy, deserving of like a year worth of full-time work of a serious investigative journalist, and not a couple of hours for a couple of weeks of me doing a surface search of articles online in the evenings after work. But I'm afraid the amateur findings and thoughts will have to do for now. I haven't spoken much about younger artists. The variety shows have a certain kind of audience and demand a certain kind of performers. A very, very large chunk of Russian music and comedy scene haven't ever set foot on stage of any of these shows. And they probably never will. But I do want to expand a little bit on a phenomenon I touched on when talking about Lazarev and Few Hours. A decent amount of people in different spheres of creative work that had spoken out against Russia's actions in Ukraine went on to perform in front of troops, support pro-government events and foundations, endorse and spread propaganda. They faced an impossible choice: morality or art. You can firmly refuse any offers of joining the chorus singing Putin's praise, but you will have to pay for it with your calling. You will never be an artist. Well, at least for a living, remaining underground, barely seen, barely heard. Not everyone can make it creatively after emigration as well. It's only natural that plenty of people put their moral values on the altar of the government for the sake of their careers. Even Shaman, the face of pro-government art these days, had a little hiccup after refusing to tour Donetsk region, and he promptly got booted off an award show and from the song rotation at a radio station. He later went on that tour. Doesn't really matter what you think, it's all about how you perform the loyalty. Look at these people again, where they come from, where they were born, how they lived at the awards. These are seasoned professionals in performing loyalty, and with performances so great, a lot of their pretty significant past crimes are forgiven. People with overall unproblematic careers that have spoken out against the special military operation were dragged through the mud by tabloids with such vigor, it's hard to compare it even with media coverage of the most controversial celebrities. I am not denying that some of them are genuine supporters of the current. That was a bit of a slip. I'm not denying that some of them are genuine supporters of the current political course of the country. I'm saying that it's not about who you are and what you believe. Not really. It's about how well you can play along. This story is still developing. How I wish it was a retrospective of people long dead, of days long gone. But I'm living through it. LGBTQ plus discrimination is getting stronger than ever. A few weeks into writing this script, I had to make some adjustments. Russian Supreme Court ruled that the international LGBT movement as an extremist organization. Such organization, of course, isn't real. It does not exist. It didn't matter though. The court's decision is, as many laws I have mentioned in this video, intentionally ambiguous, making persecution of anybody possible. You don't even have to actually be queer. But yeah, technically, being queer makes your existence inherently radical and dangerous. This hasn't even started to legally apply yet. But police have already started raiding clubs, people started purging their social media, and some started to report people for propaganda even harder. Kirkorov, Baskov, Lazarev, and others with their questionable love lives, flamboyant costumes, and controversies are not going anywhere though. Because it's not about the gay people, and it's not even about some arbitrary morality. It's about playing along. Every single law passed, every single thing done doesn't feel like it has any real proper purpose in it or full of devoted belief. It's about weeding out the ones unable to keep performing loyalty. It's about the government performing traditionalism, performing protection, performing care. Some of the actors had their masks fused with their faces forever, but can you blame those born on stage long after the play had started? Yet you can't excuse them either. I'm out here doing a mediocre job of performing the part of a little pebble in the background, hoping the stagehands won't come to pick me up. The biggest act of defiance I can muster is not opening my mouth when I pretend to sing along to the New Year's song thanking Stalin for my happy childhood. I really don't want to see this year's variety shows, but I might take a look, just to sit there and fight every single line inside my head again, to pause it and to stand up and pace around, mumbling angrily and making faces. I like live action roleplay. Not just the fun elves and orcs kind, but the intense and brainy kind. In especially emotional games, some game masters make you do something called de-rolling at the end. Shake your character off, introduce yourself with your real name again, share a fact about yourself, your real self, share a feeling that you really feel, do something that feels like truly you and not the character. To not stay within the role you played, to go back to reality. And sometimes it's harder than you think, especially if you're good at roleplay and especially if your character is kind of very similar to you. Just a little bit to the left, played in a different key. Your mind is kind of bad at distinguishing reality from fiction, the truth from pretending. Sometimes you need to say your safe word, leave the story and de-roll before the game even ends. In 2020, a journalist under investigation, Irina Slavina, walked in front of the Internal Affairs building in Nizhny Novgorod and set herself on fire. I'm not saying I'm gonna do it, but I must say that I get it. Happy New Year, everyone. Ёлочка гори.
It's December 29th, the very late evening. I look like shit, I feel like shit, but I have to kind of talk about some stuff, that's some recent fucking developments. I shot this video less than a week ago. I've been cramming editing, but you know, this country keeps fucking going. There was a party from blogger Nastya Ivleeva. I have no idea who she is. I don't really know what she's famous for, but you know, she's famous. And she had a party with dress code almost naked. Basically like sheer dresses and costumes and all of that. Just kind of like your basic like influencer shit. This party was publicized, like celebrities went to it, they posted about it on Instagram, and they got cancelled like hell. Like at the moment they are recording apology videos and like getting randomly investigated for taxes and removed from like advertising materials, and like they are all in big trouble. And like some people say that it is like active effort to like use celebrities as a scapegoat for like dissatisfaction of like common people, and kind of like let people like take it out on them, which sounds believable. But you know, some people that I mentioned in this video, including Philip Kirkorov, are currently under fire for this almost naked party with their like little sheer costumes and their Balenciaga socks on their dicks and all of that. So, you know, I feel like I had to add that into the video. It's like, I feel like it should be one of those like 5 hour long videos, but I don't think I can pull that off. Happy New Year anyway. Like I hope we get through next year without like I hope I don't go to jail. That's it. That's it. Like that's the achievement. Like not no jail for me. Okay, see you around. See you when I see you. I want to do more YouTube in 2024. So hopefully it's not gonna be another like 3 to 9 months of waiting for my next vid. Bye.